Wendigo! Remember from the X-Men series? I mean, the arcade machine where we'd play the X-Men arcade game, and one of the villains was Wendigo, and, he was a little white, furry creature we would fight.
No, I actually don't remember that. But...
Well, we played it not long ago on the PlayStation 3 of mine.
Oh, okay, yeah, that one. Yeah, sorry, no, I do get that.
Yeah, that would be a big disappointment. The Wendigo was like he was in that video game in this movie.
I was thinking about starting this one with Caribou Coffee or something, but yeah.
Okay. So, hi, welcome to End Credit Reviews, on episode After the Credits on End Credit Reviews. This is Tyler from End Credit Reviews.
And Steven from Steven Lawson on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all that.
So. Yes, and it's been a long time since we've done a video like this. There hasn't really been too many movies out and about, which kind of reflects on the current state of movies right now as it is. And this is our review on the movie Antlers. Now, of course, this is a movie that Steven's been looking forward to tremendously, as we brought up in our review on Godzilla vs. Kong, when he was really thirsting for this movie. Like, I need the movie, give me the fix, or however you said it.
Yes, I need it.
Yeah, that was a review. I jokingly said that all the movies getting delayed and that, and looking forward to The King's Man finally getting released.
Mm-hmm.
And about Godzilla vs. Kong, I was happy when it came out, because who knows, by the time the movie came out, with all the times it got delayed, Millie Bobby Brown would be an adult by then.
Very true.
And it's kind of messed up knowing that there's probably people out there who are counting down to when she will become an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like when they're doing with the Olsen twins.
Yeah.
If you watch the movie Cabin Fever, one guy's wearing a shirt that says right at 18. That's the date when the Olsen twins turned 18. So this is our movie. This is the review of the movie called Antlers. So anyway, this movie was directed by Scott Cooper, who's directed some pretty good movies I've seen, such as Black Mass, which is based off a true story that Johnny Depp played the character in. That was an Oscar-worthy performance. He didn't get nominated for an Academy Award for that one, as well as Hostiles. That was another pretty good movie with Christian Bale in that. And have you seen those, Steven?
I have seen Hostiles. I haven't seen Black Mass. That's on my to-watch list.
Okay. Yeah, and this one is Antlers. So Antlers is based off a short story. I can't remember what it was called The Quiet Kid or
I think it's
something
called
like
The Quiet Boy, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So this will adapt into a feature film, and it's about this little boy. I'm trying to remember his name in the movie, who plays him. So basically his father was involved in some kind of meth lab thing, but then the meth lab that they were at happened to be part of an abandoned factory, and there's some kind of Native American kind of things up and about, and then something happens to this guy that affects both this little boy named Lucas, played by Jeremy T. Thomas, and his brother Aiden, played by Sawyer Jones. So then this attracts the attention of the kid's teacher, named Julia, played by Kerry Russell, and her brother Paul, played by Jesse Plemons. It's drawn into the mix. Now, this movie was supposed to come out back in April of last year, and I remember seeing the trailer for this movie when I went to go see the Invisible Man movie from 2020, and this movie got delayed many times, and it finally got released. And what's weird about it is that this movie is part of the trend of a lot of box office disappointments that have been coming out recently, because this movie came out the same weekend as Last Night in Soho, the new Edgar Wright movie. It cost like roughly $50 million, and it's made like maybe $12 million worldwide, even with like, the advertisements on the internet talking about Anya Taylor-Joy's in the movie too, and a lot of guys, like people on Instagram, are flaunting over her. And by the way, I think if they ever make a live action Anastasia remake or whatever, it should be perfect. Seeing like the Queen's Gambit thing. Mm-hmm. And The Last Duel has been bombing pretty hard. That was like $100 million movie, and it made like only like maybe a third of that at best.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just really bad. But anyway, what did you think of Antlers, Steven?
Also, I love that we talked about for The Last Duel, no Yu-Gi-Oh! And stuff like that,
Yeah, that's what they do with
thumbs
that.
down. 1 of 5.
I'm sorry, I overlooked that note on mine I wrote.
All good.
But thank you for holding me accountable for that.
Absolutely. Gotta represent my boys of the Millennium Puzzle. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're not cable news here. We do make attractions.
But, yeah, no, this movie was solid. I think in some regards it met my expectations, and some it was a little underwhelming. I think it was a little underwhelming in terms of the performance actually of the Wendigo that was supposed to be involved in some capacity in this film. And although it was, I didn't see as much of it as I would have liked to. And there was certain things about the mythology about it that I think could have been explored better. Like they did delve a little bit into it because they had the Native American that was part of the police department and conveniently has a book that explains, oh, well, this is what you're dealing with, kids.
Mr. Exposition.
Yeah, Mr. Exposition. But with that being considered and the performance of the brother, I forgot his name, but he's in Breaking Bad and
Oh yeah.
things like that. He was kind of underwhelming as well, I think, as a performance. But I think that when it came to the Lucas, who was the boy, and the teacher, they were both solid. And the Wendigo, for when we did see it, was a very menacing presence and helped elevate the film to a certain extent. And it did have a good slow burn atmosphere, which I think is effective for the isolated town in Oregon story that they were trying to build. And I also liked that there's something very timely about it in its messaging, because you could even tell with like the state of the town. It was rough. There was lots of people lined up at the unemployment department. And so there's just this lingering sense of like this town is decaying and rotten. And so it makes sense kind of symbolically that a beast born from cannibalism and feeding off of like the downtrodden would be a thematically appropriate creature for this situation. So I guess I would kind of put it as like the aesthetic of this movie was very well put together, but some of these specifics about the lore and the execution, especially towards the end, I think could have been a little more taut. But other than that, I think it was a perfectly fine film. I wouldn't say it was one of the best I've seen in the past few years, but I'm glad I did see it because I want to see more of these types of movies that explore like fantastical creatures and things like this that are different, that aren't covered over and over again. The zombie genre, the vampire genre, the things like that, that gets tried and done, and there are good things and bad things. But I, on a tangent, thought that the new Pet Cemetery was trash because every single iteration just ditches the concept of the Wendigo, and it's important to the story. Like if you read it if you read the book, it is a central antagonist in the story. So to just scratch that, I think does a real disservice, and it was nice to have a story that was about the Wendigo, even if it was just in part. And I think that a lesson that this movie can take for other creators that would like to experiment with the concept of the Wendigo or things like that is to have kind of a almost have a mythical quality to it and maintain distance, but kind of establish lore in a more competent way, and don't just kind of shoehorn elements like those safety spirit warding little sacks that they had and stuff like that they just don't explain. Well, why were they there? Mm-hmm. Things like that weren't tackled, and I think that was slightly to the detriment. But overall, in terms of performances, can't complain too much. It was a lower budget film, and it looked, I think, as good as it could have for a low budget film. And I think it accomplished its goal, and the story of kind of symbolically of the abusive parent of both the teacher and this kid translated well as well. So I'm kind of rambling about, but to summarize it, I think it was solid, not quite as good as I was hoping for. But if I had to give this film a grade, I would put it somewhere around 76 to 78%.
Wow, already your rating?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I had a lot more to say before I do that, but
Oh,
okay.
sorry. Well,
So, well, anyway, going to straight to dessert.
mm-hmm.
Well, I'm just going to enjoy my meal before I get to that, but anyways, so yeah, I do agree with what you were saying about making an interesting myth, because I feel like we should make more, at least if you want to tell more kind of interesting stories from different backgrounds, just to tell more stories from different cultures, because some of the more conventional ones, like the European fairy tales, have been kind of been done to death. And to try to keep them fresh, Hollywood's been, race swapping characters who were, established to be a certain way. And sadly, like the live action remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs right now, where the actress playing Snow White isn't necessarily white like she was described in the story, which is important to her character. But if you wanted to do that, why not just adapt more stories from like the Americas or from Africa or Asia? There's plenty more stuff from mythology they haven't adapted yet. So that would be interesting to see if they would do that. And also I've been writing some of my own stuff too and trying to make myths and so on, which is, good writing exercise in general at the very least. So anyway, I recognize Kerry Russell, who was in this movie from the TV show The Americans. That's a pretty good show she was in. And also, this is a much better movie, at least structure-wise, than The Rise of Skywalker, where she was in that movie barely any moment of it. And even seeing that movie in theaters, I got like a whiplash feeling because of how overly fast it was. It didn't let you breathe in anything. It just went here and there and there. It's like there's things that were, it's like someone messed up with the editing. But speaking of editing, I think the worst part about this movie would have to be the bully character.
Yeah.
Who's this redhead kid. And I think the worst parts about the movie are with him because, for one, he's just a bad actor. Like, some of his lines are, like, really dry and bland. And there's a part, too, where this kid puts some, like, poop or whatever in his backpack. Yeah. And he comes from, hey, you do this? And I swear, this is exactly what happens. The bully walks up to him. We jump cut to the bully, picking on the little kid, putting his face up against the door for like several seconds, and then we jump cut to the kid in the hospital, and I'm like, that was an awkward edit.
That was an awkward edit, you're right. Yeah, I was trying to think of like why they had to do it that way, and it was like, well, maybe they didn't want to hurt the kid or something, but it's like, they could have shot it differently. That's not an excuse, so...
Yeah, it's almost like that. I was thinking about it. You were mentioning Yu-Gi-Oh earlier, and of how they would censor stuff on Yu-Gi-Oh for the American version.
Yeah,
and when Joey punches Tristan in the American version, hey, what do you shove me for?
Yeah, I mean, in the Japanese version, Joey outright decks Yugi at a certain point, and that's just not seen. It's so goofy.
That's hilarious. But couldn't, resist showing the Brooklyn rage of him kicking the door.
Exactly.
Yeah, and also, too, you were mentioning earlier Jesse Plemons as the brother character. I thought it was a funny piece of irony that he's in this movie, but there's also a meth lab in this movie because he was on the TV show Breaking Bad involving, like, meth stuff.
True.
Yeah, it's hard to believe he's married to Kirsten Dunst and that. So sorry, Mike from Red Letter Media. He beat you to it. I guess your Shakespearean attempts to woo her over didn't really work out as planned.
One thing that I guess we should also at least lightly touch on is they kind of establish at the very beginning that like the Wendigo is supposed to prey on those that do wrong, basically, and like are causing problems with nature. And although they do hint a little bit about like, the mountaintop removal and stuff like that to a certain extent, they kind of imply that the meth dealers were like part of, doing a incredible wrong to nature. And while I would agree that like making crystal meth is wrong morally, is it really like destroying the environment as much as other things? Like I guess maybe the home environment, if you want to argue, and I think the story then did kind of refocus from like the macro level to this boy and this teacher, so it almost became like a family story after that. But it was kind of weird to kind of state in the beginning, oh, so this is what Wendigos are supposed to do, and then it's like, but not really though. Like, you know, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting.
Okay, yeah, and also another, character, well, actress that is recognizable, at least to me, was Amy Madigan as the principal character.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognize her from the TV show Penny Dreadful City of Angels as a side character. That was a show that I was looking forward to a lot because I love the original Penny Dreadful series, but it failed pretty bad because it tried to crowbar too many like current year political stuff for a show that takes place in the 1930s, which makes sense why the show did not get renewed for a second season. But yeah, I think the best part about this movie, of course, was all the scenes with the Wendigo, especially the design of the character was great, and so were the computer effects. Although we do see most of the Wendigo in darkness and that, which I think is, well, a lot of people point this out, how it's easy to do an effect shot when it's in darkness or there's very little lighting exposing it to make it more realistic in a way. Like it's harder to convince audiences of like a computer generated character when they're out in the sun or a very sunny environment where a lot of flaws can be exposed, which is very challenging. But yeah, design was good, and I thought the moment when the Wendigo like escapes the body of one of the guys possessed in that. By the way, I noticed that the aspect ratio changed.
Yeah,
like it was a convenient aspect ratio for most scenes, but then when it's showing like the flashbacks of what happened with the father, it kind of becomes like a 4:3 box format in a way. But or something like that. But anyway, the aspect ratio changes, and the way he like bursts open was very edgy and very effective. And I gotta applaud him to whoever it was, if it was a computer effect or a practical on set effect. They did an amazing job with that. That was great. However, I do think there's a moment where the Wendigo like kills one of the police officers with ease, but then when the more important character looks around, who also has a police officer, he just gets like thrown or whatever at first, and then the Wendigo like attacks him, and then somehow, this is kind of spoiler territory, so he like survives somehow. At the end I thought, okay, he's gonna probably bleed out or whatever, but he's alive still, and then it shows, I guess, he's get the possession thing or whatever with the Wendigo, and they leave it open for a sequel that way. The ending kind of felt a little rushed to me, like it was a little bit too quick, especially with the ending that it had. And yeah, I think this whole movie has an interesting concept, but I feel like there's some ways that it could have been better emphasizing with nature and other stuff with the town, and especially with like the scenes with like when they actually have the Wendigo. Yes, you're right, the Wendigo could have more screen time. But anyway, I think Antlers is a fairly decent horror movie in general. Nice covering mythology that hasn't really talked about that much. But at the same time, I would say I do prefer this director's previous movies, such as Black Mass and Hostels, more than this one. So as for Antlers, I would give it about 2.5 stars out of 4.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. And I overall agree. I haven't seen enough of Scott Cooper's other films to really state educated in an educated manner. I would see from seeing Hostels that to me they were of comparable quality, and the tone. I think that this guy, from at least those two films, does a good job of like a very bleak kind of dark reality. That like both of those films communicate a sort of just like sad decay of things, whether it's the state of the world or like society or whatever, that he has a talent for, and I think that at the very least came across. And I also agree that I think for me, if we had to say that the biggest problem, I'd say that the beginning was a little slow and the last part was a little quick. So for future things they can learn, maybe don't have the final thing be like 2 minutes. But
Yeah, I agree. And also, too, I mean, we pretty much covered all the bases that we
yeah.
could in that, but I will say that one of the most entertaining aspects of our movie theater going experience is that we're the only people in the auditorium, but also this super generic movie trailer played
Oh my
before
gosh.
this movie, and we were like laughing. I'm like, is this like getting a theatrical release? This looks like a direct to video nonsense thing. It was called For the Love of Money or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's called For the Love of Money. I'm looking at the official YouTube channel right now. The trailer has 2,000 views, and the production company has 140 subscribers. Big, big, big yikes. Not looking great, Chief. But we may have to watch that just to make fun of it. Like, I don't know. Maybe when it comes to like streaming on, in 2 weeks or something.
But we still have to watch Cats. Still.
True, we do have to watch Cats.
But I remember we had a great time watching Batman and Robin. That was hilarious.
Absolutely. And yeah, what's the next one? Maybe Kingsman that we'll talk about, or
Yeah, probably. Or Spider-Man No Way Home.
true, very true. So.
Yeah, all the memes coming out from just that movie alone is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
When Doc Ock realizes he's going to kidnap this version of Aunt May. Yeah.
Aunt May, yeah.
So anyway, this is Tyler from Anchor Reviews.
And Stephen Lawson from the corresponding named YouTube channel. And I think it's on Instagram, it's The Big Steve. So.
All right, and we hope you enjoyed this episode after the credits on Anchor Reviews, and we hope to make a lot more in the future. Please like and subscribe.